All right, so I'll give the link below if you want to see on screen exactly what it was Vegan Gains said and exactly what I said in reply to him and what I assume or even what I hope is the last conversation I ever had with this guy. But you guys already know I was pushing him on the issue of having a meaningful life. And he really did not want to reply to that. He really didn't want to deal with the question. I was talking about having a morally upstanding life. I was talking about having an intellectually rewarding life, moving forward positively. And kind of the last dodge or deflection he engaged in was instead trying to answer about how much money he makes, how he makes more money than I do, which is it's just misdirection. It's just not the topic of conversation. You know, do you want to go into real estate? You can make a lot more money in real estate than on YouTube, but that's not what we're talking about, you know. We were talking about the difference between leading a meaningful life and a meaningless one, and how to grow older, how to grow wiser while growing older, instead of just playing video games and living a kind of self-indulgent life and this kind of thing. Anyway, so he finally did answer the question of what kind of person does he want to be in 5 to 10 years, and how's he going to get there, by just bragging about how much money he makes, and by claiming that playing video games is justified because you can make so much money doing it. And this was my reply. Quote, does anyone here think that Vegan Gains would make less money if he actually followed the advice set out in this video? Would he receive less in donations if he directly imitated the 2 examples set out in the video of people who engage in humanitarian work with Syrian refugees? Do you think he'd become a worse person if he started caring about the real world in terms of reading and learning, not just humanitarian engagement, as opposed to playing video games? Anyone? So there are a lot of funny little ironies built into this. I know Vegan Gains has wanted to talk tough about Islam in the past. He's wanted to offer a very harsh criticism of Islam. Well, you know, he could, especially from his position of privilege, frankly, in terms of his level of fame and income from, you know, sharing his opinions on the internet. He could have raised money and gone over and got involved and done humanitarian work in, really anywhere in the Muslim world. He could have gone to Afghanistan or what have you, and he could have started producing much more well-informed, deep, and profound reflections on, you know, the cultural effects of Islam and what's wrong with it and the knock-on effects it has on people's lives, whether it's on people's psychology, education, gender roles, or what have you. I know he made videos in the past in a really shallow way, just heaping scorn on Islam. Go out there, live with it, see what it does to people, and, you know, try to make a positive difference. He could have gotten involved with, I mean, I'm just saying, he's also heaped scorn on feminism, you know, in a really shallow way. Well, you could put those 2 together. What about getting involved with women's education in Afghanistan? You know, i.e. trying to oppose the tendency of the Taliban and other Muslim extremists, their tendency to exclude women from having access to education, to actually getting out and fighting for women's equality through education, whether in Afghanistan or whatever, anywhere in the Muslim world. What about, again, if he came onto that? I don't think anyone could say that Vegan Gains would have less public support and less interest if he actually did take on a sincerely humanitarian engagement with the Muslim world. Syria happened to be the example we talked about. Now, this takes me to the main topic I want to discuss in this video, which is hope. And when Vegan Gains first came on the scene, I remember him being interviewed, actually by a huge range of people. I remember him being interviewed by The Amazing Atheist on his show that was then called The Drunken Peasants. I remember him being interviewed by Happy Healthy Vegan. When Vegan Gains first achieved a certain level of fame, there was real excitement attached to hope, right? And the hope was that he was going to play some kind of positive role in leading the vegan movement. And instead, what we've all learned with the passage of time and repetition is that there is no hope. He is never going to do anything positive for anyone, as I just discussed with him, face to face, it was just in written format going back and forth. He is never going to do anything but sit in his ass and live a life devoted to short-term self-indulgence, playing video games, whatever makes him feel happy in the moment. What is a life of complete indulgence? There's no answer. There is no complete self-indulgence, right? But the opposite. There is complete devotion to doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. There is complete devotion to doing the best you can, being devoted to make the world a better place, to being a better person yourself. And part of that is, indeed, making the commitment, hey, my life is not just about feeling good. It's not just about chasing a feeling. It's not about how I feel. It's not even just about what I know. It's about fundamental questions of right and wrong. In terms of what I'm doing on this channel, and in terms of what I'm doing with my life, I've said again and again, I'm not interested in optics. I'm not interested in cultivating the appearance of being a good person. I'm not interested in the marketing or public relations reality of seeming to be a good person, whether that's on social media or as the leader of a political movement or as an activist. I'm really interested in the question of being and becoming a better person. And it is strangely moving for me to listen to that video clip you've also just heard, where I'm suggesting to Vegan Gains, hey, you really have the money in the bank, you've got the viewers, and you've got the fame. If you're interested in Islam, if you're interested in presenting a critique of Islam, you can go to Afghanistan. You can go to Afghanistan as a filmmaker. You can go to Afghanistan as a YouTuber, as a vlogger, whatever you want to say, as a social commentator. You can go and have that experience and come back and talk about what it means. You're interested in the critique of feminism. You could go and interview some of the feminists who are there trying to provide schooling and education and literacy to children. And, again, I'm not saying you have to lose your sense of humor. I mean, you could go and do that and then make YouTube videos with the contrast between feminism in a starkly Muslim contrast, like humanitarian work in Afghanistan, and what you see on university campuses in Toronto. Fine. There's so much creative potential there. But you look back at that, and whatever you may think of Vegan Gains, the man he is, the man he has become, you recognize there was this awesome potential for personal growth, for personal change, for him to be, for him to become a better person. If he would just, in this sense, live up to his own hype, if he would just go down the rabbit hole and pursue his own interests beyond the short-term satisfaction of sitting in front of a camera, fatuously passing judgment on things that he's never even done 5 minutes of research on, that he's never even read a Wikipedia article about. I made this video partly because I thought it was important, just in terms of fair play, to provide the context for that bizarre quotation, that email he sent me where he's saying something incoherent about helping Syrian refugees, to let you know what the context for that discussion was. But also, it has stuck in my mind that a colleague in the vegan movement asked me, what do I think Richard's motivation was? What was it in the past, and what is it now? Why is it that he's doing the bizarre and aberrant things that he does? And I had to say back, honestly, if you check out the interview I did with Vegan Gains years and years ago, back when we were friends, but interview he did for my channel, you'll notice that when I ask him, what is he planning to do in the future? What does he think he's going to do with the next 5 years of his life? What's he going to do in terms of activism, leadership in the vegan movement? What he says is that he wants to buy a house. He wants to make a ton of money. He wants to be rich and famous and buy a house. What he said to me in that interview, I believe, and also in other conversations, was that all he wants to do is sit around, play video games whenever he wants to, wake up whenever he wants to, become rich and famous like live streamers like PewDiePie and Ninja, playing video games, making no effort at all. He wants, in this sense, to remain forever in a playpen, or you might say, in a pig pen of reckless, short-term self-indulgence. That is, in brief, the tragedy of vegan gains. And I know, for everyone in the audience, if you just stop and reflect on your own life, whether it was a period of 6 months or a period of 6 years, there's some period of your life where you felt that way. There's some period of your life where you lived that way, and there might even now be a temptation for you to live that way. So in this sense, there's a really important lesson for us, one and all, to look at vegan gains, reflect on what it means to have a meaningful life for ourselves, what kind of sacrifices, what kind of commitment it's going to take. There is no particular destination in Afghanistan that I'm saying vegan gains should have gone to. There is no particular purpose to that trip or that journey, and it didn't have to be Afghanistan. It could have been numerous other countries anywhere on the map. The journey we're talking about here is of challenging your own ignorance, challenging your own indolence, challenging your own childishness, and then discovering yourself to be, constructing yourself into some kind of adult, becoming the person that it is you want to be, fashioning yourself into the instrument of your own philosophy. And to do that, you don't have to go to Afghanistan. You don't have to come from or go to any place whatsoever. But you've got to start asking yourself hard questions, and you have to start coming up with new answers that make you uncomfortable, because fundamentally, you've got to feel uncomfortable with the person that you already are.